Hello again, I am Blunty, and just before we get started, please know we are sliding into speculation town today. I usually like to deal in rather more solid facts, or at least rumours with a lot more confidence behind them, but this one's kind of interesting to think about, and what it means for the direction of the Sony PlayStation experience. So, rumours have started, once more, flying around about Sony supposedly preparing to re-enter the handheld gaming market. A market they abandoned, they fled from, many years ago now. Nintendo, of course, have utterly dominated handheld gaming for a very long time now. No company who has ever tried since 1989's Game Boy has ever even come close to properly challenging their market dominance in this space. They are kings there. Or perhaps emperor is the better term, because, Japan is an emperor. Stop it, Blunty, don't get lost in the metaphor. And there's a few reasons to that, but there is one company that did start to come close to properly challenging Nintendo in market success and gamer enthusiasm, and that was Sony. 20 years ago, the Nintendo DS faced up against Sony's first attempt in the space, the PlayStation Portable, and they did okay. Pretty respectable. In terms of units sold, Sony shifted 80 million, which sounds good, until I tell you about the 154 million that the Nintendo DS sold. But it was enough to give Sony some confidence. So in 2011, up against Nintendo's 3DS, Sony offered the world the PlayStation Vita, which, while beloved by many who owned it, it is, a cult hit if you like. It failed rather dramatically to actually compete in the market, shifting 16 million units, which was barely 20% of the 3DS's 75 million lifetime sales. It was a loss so significant, so embarrassing, I suppose, for Sony, that they quit trying. But the Vita was officially discontinued in 2019. For half a decade now, Sony have shown zero interest in being embarrassed by Nintendo once more, until now. Possibly. Because, like I said, once again, there are rumours. And they're not the first time such rumours have surfaced. At least once a year for the last half decade they pop up. But this time they might be more likely to be legit, because the handheld gaming space has changed a lot over the last, year and a half, 2 years really. Starting with the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally and, all that kind of stuff. And we're swimming in countless cheapo Chinese Android handheld variants and whatnot. But it's also likely that if we do get a new portable PlayStation, it's likely still, a couple of years away, because this rumour supposes the handheld in early stages of production is aiming to run PlayStation 5 games. Not half-assed ports and spin-offs like the Vita had, but full-fat PlayStation 5 games, which, considering the PlayStation 5's architecture, hums along on an AMD APU, and AMD's mobile chipset architecture has been proving to be extremely capable and is only getting better. Already powering very popular PC gaming handhelds like the Steam Deck, the ROG Ally, the Lenovo Legion Go, the MSI Claw, and a large pile of other, less well-known brands out of China with similar devices. And while the architecture in these current APUs is a generation or two more advanced than the PlayStation 5's 8-core Zen 2 CPU architecture and its 36 compute unit RDNA 2 GPUs, and the modern equivalents are far more efficient, they're still not quite up to matching the raw performance of the PlayStation 5, mostly because they have to maintain a very low power usage, being battery-powered handhelds. So they tend to use 7 to 30 watts, while even the standard model PlayStation 5 slips up about 200 watts. But we are not far off having a generation of these AMD APUs that will make it practical to have the kind of performance and power envelope needed to make a legit handheld PlayStation 5 practical. Meanwhile, Nintendo's Switch successor has already been officially confirmed as being backwards compatible with the Nintendo Switch, which means it will more than likely be using the modern descendant of Nvidia's Tegra architecture. And if various leaks and rumours prove true about that, as to which specific variant of that descendant architecture is being used, it might be a close match to a PlayStation 4, they say, when it comes to compute power. And of course, on paper that sounds like PlayStation's new portable will destroy the comparatively slow-ass backwards Nintendo jobby limping along on PlayStation 4 graphics. But To those of you who've been around for at least the last 20 years of gaming know that it's not even close to true. It's not a fluke that the severely underpowered Nintendo Switch has done so astonishingly well on the market. Once upon a time, little 12-year-old Blunty, back in 1990 or so, saved up his allowance for an excruciatingly long time and invested in the hugely powerful, at least compared to the competitors, the Game Boy and even the Sega Game Gear, Atari Lynx. I wanted the most powerful gaming handheld, and from Atari, a gaming company who made the 2600 that I grew up with, a trusted gaming brand. That was a mistake. Globally, it sold barely 500,000 units. Meanwhile, the Game Boy rose to selling nearly 119 million over its lifespan. But the biggest thing about the Lynx that sank it wasn't just how fast it destroyed batteries, 6 AA's at a time, or its very unpocket-friendly size, or its awkward weight. It was the library of games. There were less than 100 games ever released for the damn thing, and very few from large or popular licenses. Atari just didn't have the clout for it at that point in time. And throughout the entirety of Nintendo's handheld history, competitors have again and again and again failed, even while fielding more powerful and technically more capable options. It's Nintendo's game library, of course. We all understand this. It's not a secret. I'm not revealing a mysterious, inside baseball trick here. That's why they kick ass. They've got a great library of games that people really, really want to play, and they need Nintendo's hardware to play them. They've got some astonishingly fantastic first-party stuff, a long-established relationship throughout the industry of third-party devs, and that, of course, has been the key to Nintendo's success, even though they keep selling you vastly underpowered hardware. Which is why Sony ever came close to being properly serious competition, because while Sony did want power, Sony also had a fantastic library of exclusive first-party and long-term licenses alike, and their dominance in the standard console industry makes the brand itself very attractive for devs to work with. And Sony's library now is better than it ever has been. It is literally the only reason I own a PlayStation 5, for the exclusives. And it was the same for me for Nintendo's handhelds. They were far from my main gaming platform, but a fistful of exclusives meant I always had each generation of hardware. So, between the extreme capabilities of AMD's latest generation in APUs and what's coming next, and Sony's library of exclusives, a truly handheld PlayStation 5 would be very attractive. It has the right mix of ingredients. But, also, if that's all that is, handheld PlayStation 5, it'll also just be a very optional choice, won't it? It won't be a must-have like Nintendo's stuff has been. Because if all it does is run the same games the PlayStation 5 does, I, for one, will just play on the standard PlayStation 5. Most of the handheld gaming I actually do is still at home, only in cozier places than my desk, like cut up in bed. And if I want to play PlayStation 5s while doing that, I've got PlayStation Remote Play to do that, either on one of my other handheld devices or my phone or whatever. One other specific reason Nintendo's handhelds thrived is because they were their own ecosystems. They weren't alternative form factors to the Nintendo 64 or the GameCube or the Wii and so on. The games were largely bespoke, made for those systems, and not just the same game but made handheld or a port or a weird little spin-off. I mean, sometimes it was, but largely it wasn't. It was a massive library of truly unique and bespoke games made especially for the handhelds. And by the time the Switch arrived, in its hybrid form of course, it was just the one choice for all of the Nintendo library, and that was fantastic. And obviously that has been extremely popular with consumers. But a handheld PlayStation 5? It's optional by nature of it, which means it'll likely not sell super well, and its arrival date would be close to the PlayStation 5 itself being replaced by the inevitable PlayStation 6, which itself will more than likely also play PlayStation 5 games, because I'd be shocked if they didn't stick with AMD's architecture again. It's working really well for them. So, still optional and situational in that case. And Sony surely won't be stupid enough to run a PlayStation 5 level option alongside a PlayStation 6, but still ask devs to keep their games compatible for both, because Microsoft have been learning that lesson pretty hard, with the Series S frequently hamstringing the game releases for the Series X, either holding back the release while they try and make it work on the S, or the S version just being kind of crap, shitty, unpleasant. So whichever way Sony goes here, it'll be interesting to watch. Do they want to just make a handheld option and just have it not sell astonishingly well? And, people are going to make big deals about how poorly it's selling compared to the consoles and compared to Nintendo, surely. Or are they going to make a bespoke unit and try and split their market, something Nintendo have stopped doing because Nintendo do a hybrid system these days, so they don't have to run two separate systems. Frankly, from where Sony stands right now and the type of things they tend to do, I don't know if I see a path forward for a PlayStation Portable to actually be successful in a way that competes with Nintendo and avoids the inevitable embarrassing comparisons between, hey, Nintendo is selling this many handhelds and, oh, Sony is selling this many handhelds. Because, Sony are too arrogant to put up with that. That's why they quit the Vita. The Vita sold fine. Not astonishingly well, but fine, respectably. But they were too embarrassed and shamed by how Nintendo kicked their ass all over the handheld market that they stopped trying. That's the Sony arrogance for you there. But now, with all these handhelds, ROG Ally and all these Android handhelds, and rumors that Microsoft are working on an Xbox handheld as well, because, everything's an Xbox according to their latest thing. What's going to happen next? Like I said, we're in speculation territory, deep in speculation territory here, but it is interesting to think about, don't you reckon? I suspect they will still struggle against Nintendo's humble but mighty choices. Nintendo are not my favorite company in the world, nor is Sony for that matter. But Nintendo are making smart choices. I mean, they occasionally misstep. Hi, Wii U, how you doing? But it wasn't the games on the Wii U that were the problem, and that's been proven by how well the ports of the Wii U games to the Switch have sold. Like, really, really well. So, what comes next? I don't know. Wait and see. Let me know what you think in the down below. Thank you to the patrons. I am Blunty, and we'll catch you next time.